I want to get our lagging indicators up. It takes a while for things to feel like, are we driving an impact? You're doing everything every single day, but ultimately everyone's on an annual contract. And so you're waiting to see a year from now, what is going to be the impact?
Once again, welcome to the Digital Customer Experience Podcast with me, Alex Turkovich. So glad you could join us here today and every week as we explore how digital can help enhance the customer and employee experience. My goal is to share what my guests and I have learned over the years so that you can get the insights that you need to evolve your own digital programs. If you'd like more info, need to get in touch, or sign up for the weekly companion newsletter that has additional articles and resources in it, go to digitalcustomersuccess.com. For now, let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Digital CX Podcast. My name is Alex Turkovich. I'm so glad that you're back here with me this week and every week as we talk about all things digital in CX. This is episode 83. Episode 83. I'm pleased to be joined today by Alison Barrett, who leads digital at Airtable. Many of you are familiar with Airtable. Many of you use Airtable on a regular basis. And if you are an Airtable user, it is very likely you will have seen some of Alison's team's work. She joined Airtable quite a while ago. I want to say it's a year or something like that. You'll have to listen to the interview to find out the specifics. But she joined and was tasked with really building a digital program from the ground up, and has done a phenomenal job of really getting in the weeds, and is gracious enough to share with us some of the things that she did and the journey that she's been on as she has built this program, because I know many of you are in the same boat of having to build up a program and not really knowing where to start, not really knowing what to tackle first. And Alison does a really great job of opening up about her own process and then sharing some of her successes along the way. Before we get into this conversation, though, I just wanted to take a moment and wish you all a very happy holiday season. Merry Christmas for those of you who celebrate. Happy Hanukkah for those of you who celebrate that. And anyone else who celebrates something else, I just hope you get some time off and some rest, because that's something that I'm looking forward to as well. I appreciate every single one of you listening on a weekly basis. I wouldn't be here without you, obviously. And I really appreciate all of the feedback and the responses and, the messages that I get on a regular basis. Want to also thank, some of the sponsors that have been along for the ride this year, especially. And looking forward to seeing you next year. We've got some amazing things planned for next year. And while we will be publishing a couple more episodes, I won't actually be talking to you until the new year. So, with that, have a great break. I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Alison Barrett, because I sure did. Well, welcome to the show. It's so lovely to have you. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a bit because you're doing some really cool stuff at Airtable. But yeah, super happy to have you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, this is kind of a full circle moment for me, because when I started this role back in May of 2023, I went and listened to the DCS podcast, trying to get some ideas of other leaders and what people were doing and what people were talking about. And I actually came to this podcast. So it was really cool that you reached out, and it's kind of a full circle moment saying, been doing this for about a year and some change, and here we are ready to talk about it. So
that's
kind of
cool.
Nice to reflect, and see what we accomplished.
So I guess that would have been one of the early,
I think the
very
first.
early. Yeah. Like I was going to say, I think I launched in May of 23. So
I know. I went back and looked at the episodes, and I was like, no, I actually started from the very beginning.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
Thank you for doing this work. I think it's really important. I don't think that a lot of folks have known a ton about scale and digital. Yeah. I learned about it from my mentors at Slack. Slack had a really wonderful scaled program team there, but it's really cool that you now have created this community of leaders, and you have your Slack workspace, which I love to go in there and chat with people. And now we can always kind of find people to ask questions about. So it's fun. So thanks for doing all this work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's still such a black box for a lot of people,
it really is.
Dan Ennis and I did a thing at Zero In recently, and it was just by the nature of some of the questions that were asked in the room. It was like, oh, okay, let's pull it back a little bit. Let's dial it back a little
Totally.
bit, because digital CS or scaled CS or whatever you want to call it, it's like still this. It's like this thing, and everybody knows now that you should do it, but what is it really? And
Yeah.
it's so funny, different approaches to it. And we definitely want to talk about your approach to it at Airtable, coming out of Slack and all that kind of stuff. But do you want to give us a little bit of a history lesson on Alison Barrett?
Yes, definitely. So, started my career at Deloitte, did tech consulting there right out of college. It was like business boot camp. I was flying all over, going on site with customers for a few years, working on some really exciting multi-year SAP implementations.
Wow. Jeez.
Yes, back in the day. And it was a wonderful experience, but I was drawn to more of the startup environment. I lived in San Francisco, but I was on a flight every Monday morning at 6 a.m. So I wanted to be, where all the action was happening.
And I mean, coming out of college, that's probably super fun. But then at some point you're like, okay.
Coming out of college, I would highly recommend consulting to anybody graduating. You get to see so many things right out of the gate. And I learned such core skills that I still use today: PowerPoint, Excel, all day, every day, presenting to customers, going on site, right? You're working side by side with, some senior leaders, still have some great mentors from, that experience. And then you got to travel and get points. I still have some Starwood points, believe it or not. So yes, wonderful experience, but I was really gravitating more towards the tech startup environment. So started at a smaller startup in San Francisco, where I was doing account management at a company called MoveWeb, where we were in charge of helping companies go mobile optimized on their websites. So this was before people were really, even before they even had an app or mobile strategy for their .com sites. So I helped to manage those projects in professional services. So a lot of fun. I'm kind of dating myself before, everyone had their apps and websites. But then I went over to Mixpanel. And Mixpanel is a product analytics company. And that's where I actually really started to love data and product analytics, and started as a CSM there. Was kind of right in the beginning when the CSM function started happening. So really feel like I was part of that beginning cohort of CSMs. So it was really, really fun. That was when it was just high touch, right? So we only worked with our most strategic customers. We did on-sites with them. It was a very high touch, very consultative experience for our large customers. I moved into management there, helped to grow the team there, managed a team across the States and EMEA and APAC. And then moved over to Slack. So Slack, I was actually brought on for a very specific role. So I was brought on to build the champion program at Slack, which is a community program for our enterprise customers. And so it was an opportunity to kind of go back into an IC role and roll up my sleeves and build out this Slack champion community. And it was an absolute blast. I was on the road again. I was talking with customers, and we built out the Slack community, which was on the product on Slack. So I think it was one of the very first Slack communities within a workspace. So it was an awesome experience. And that's where I started to get really excited about communities and how community could be a fundamental way that you can scale your business, right? Because what we were doing and what the kind of the core focus there was that we knew we couldn't scale our CSM team fast enough, but we wanted to actually create CSMs within the client, within the customer base, right? So we would train them as if they were CSMs working for us at Slack, and they became, Slack champions. And then they could, we did a lot of train the trainers, and they would go and train their employees. And that was kind of a fundamental way that we could scale what we were doing, because there were so many people that we needed to reach, people that we needed to train. Back then, people weren't totally all bought in on Slack. Everyone's still using email. They're like, what is this
Yeah.
thing?
What
Right. And
is
so
it?
we really needed these like champions within the company because, if not everybody is on the tool, then it doesn't really work.
Totally.
Right. So we had to do a lot of change management. So that was the primary first role that I started there. And then my remit grew into all scaled programs for all of CSG. So, we were doing a lot of back of house. So that was kind of the front of house program. And then back of house, my team was in charge of the customer health program. So building out all of our health scoring, red account program, the tools. So had the entire CS tools strategy. And we had Gainsight, and then we used some internal tools as well. And then the voice of customer program, which I'm super, super passionate about, voice of customer programs. And that's really where you get your customers' feedback and you can funnel it to the product team. And then you close the loop when, it's time to go to market with the products that your customers requested. And so just really building that loyalty within your customer base, I think is super important to retention. And so giving them a voice to the product team. So we built out the voice of the customer program. And then we also built all of the content and playbooks for all of the CS team across the globe. So we had about 400 CSMs that we were supporting, CS and services that we were supporting, and making sure that everyone was using the standard playbooks and all the kind of the same processes across the board. So that's where I became quite obsessed with standardization and processes, because when it comes to scaling your business, that is extremely important to make sure that everybody is doing kind of the same thing and that you're using the best in class resources, because you would be surprised. A lot of companies, a lot of CSMs are just, building their own versions of decks, and then, you're wasting a ton of time there. So when I think about scale, I think about every single person within the organization and how we are scaling what we're doing. And in order to, to be more successful internally, to be more efficient internally and productive, but then also to support our customers. So
heavy operations
Yes.
muscle at Slack,
Very big operations muscle at Slack, operations, change management, and enablement. So my team also ran our entire V2 Mom OKR process. So I'm very into OKRs and how they're really important to ladder up to what is the company objective and what are we doing, where are we going, and then how does what I am doing every day, how does that align to the company's core objective, right? And if you can't see that alignment of what is this task and why am I doing it? And if it doesn't actually, align to the company objective, then, that's kind of a question mark of why is it even on my priority list? So I really feel strongly about kind of the OKR process and making sure that people feel like the work that they're doing is connected to, the company's objective. So that's a little bit of a high level story of Slack. We got acquired by Salesforce. I stuck that out for about a year. And then something was calling me to build again. I'm such a builder. I love to start from scratch. This opportunity at Airtable came up, and I had a friend that worked at Mixpanel with me reach out. She said, I think you'd be awesome at kind of leading our scale. We're trying to figure it out. We have no idea what to do. What do you think? And I was like, this sounds awesome.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a history.
That's so cool. One thing that you said that really struck me about your Slack kind of journey was the fact that you treated your champions as essentially extensions of your team as CSMs. And I think that is that is one thing that a lot of companies strive to achieve and they can't necessarily get there, I don't think, because for whatever reason. I mean, it does take a lot of effort and a lot of mindfulness and a lot of intention to really build up champions in that way. And, I think this is the Digital CX podcast, but when you think of it, it is a digital. I mean, you're talking about thousands of champions, right?
Yes.
So inherently, it's a digital first program where the enablement is digital and the mechanisms for tracking champions is digital and all that kind of stuff. But I love that kind of methodology. Is that something that you're carrying forward into your kind of your just state of being going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's vital to every organization. We call it something a little bit different here at Airtable. It's our Airtable Ambassador Program, but same concept, right?
Yeah.
So extension of the CS team, you have boots on the ground that are within the company. They understand their own processes and what they're trying to accomplish way better than we ever could, right?
Yeah.
And so we give them the resources to be successful, and then you reward them, you recognize them, you give them a platform, you give them a stage. A lot of the champion programming is about up leveling people's careers, right? So
Sure.
you show that they are a leader in innovation, and that by becoming a champion of your product, they're able to transform, the business, and therefore they get promoted, they take on more. And so we like to kind of give them a platform to stand on. We invite them to all of our conferences, we invite them to speak, and then you can see how this kind of really nicely joins with our marketing programs as well. So a lot of the work that we were doing within the champion program, we were able to identify wonderful resources for case studies and references, all that good stuff. So customer marketing, we had a wonderful collaboration with them. So they loved working with us as well.
That's
So
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's cool to do that within an organization like Airtable, and I guess Slack as well, where it's a platform. It's a platform, and it's a skill set behind that platform that is unique to that platform. And so by that nature, enabling those folks to take ownership of these things helps them to be more successful within the business, helps them to grow their careers and whatnot, and helps you guys just be sticky as hell. So
Yes. And
it's
you
like,
talked about, it's a big investment. I actually don't know if I totally agree. I think that you need one dedicated person to focus on it.
yeah,
And so at Slack, Christina Mang, she's now the champion of champions. That's what she calls herself. She's great. You should have her on the pod. She's wonderful.
yeah,
She's now building the program at OpenAI, but she took over the program from me, and we had, she was the, FTE there, one full-time person really focusing on building the program, keeping folks engaged. She owned the workspace and
yeah.
all of the events. We did a lot of gamification of, competitions across our champions and things like that, sharing of stories. So I think, if you focus on it and you have a dedicated, I think it does take a dedicated resource or a part of your community team to really focus on it, then I think that you can be successful. But you'll see just the amount of scale that you're able to bring to your program through something like this is incredibly valuable. Our community program at Airtable, I was so excited about this because, like I said, I started the program in May. It's been a little over a year. You reached out to me, I think, in January. You're like, "Hey, can you come on the pod?" And I was like, "Oh,
Early.
quite." Yes, I'm not quite ready yet because our lagging indicators. I want to get our lagging indicators up, right? As you know, it takes a while for things to feel like, are we driving an impact? Are we driving an impact? You're doing everything every single day, but ultimately everyone's on an annual contract, and so you're waiting to see, a year from now, what is going to be the impact. But it was so exciting. I think I emailed you immediately after I got the results of these lagging indicators. Like, oh my God, we got it. Where specifically for our community program, we saw a 20% difference in NDR for customers that were in our community versus customers that weren't. And that was just like, this is what I've been waiting for. I knew that what we were doing is driving impact, but then seeing that, I was like, yes, this is awesome.
Cool.
And so we're going to do the same thing for the other programs that I own as well.
Amazing.
Just to, and hopefully we can share that again.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, because, you essentially own, if I remember correctly, community education. I think onboarding was part of that, and just in general, digital overall.
Yes. Yeah. So my purview is Scale CSM, which we provide onboarding services for subset of our scaled segment. So at Airtable, I own a segment, right? But it's also our programs touch every customer, right? So
and strategy.
It is segment and strategy. So yes, and the segment has grown as we've become more successful. So that's been exciting to see as well, that we can actually take a little bit of the, the gas off needing as many dedicated one-to-one, or we can actually reallocate those resources in dedicated CS up higher, right? So they can have smaller books of business, right? So the ratios now are feeling a lot nicer on the high touch side because we can take on more, right?
That's great. Yeah.
Yes. So my team is Scale CSM, Digital CS, so your typical email automation journeys, community education, and AI programs for CS.
Ooh.
Ooh. We can talk about
that.
So it's an amazing team. I feel extremely fortunate that I have all of these pillars. When I joined, this was not the story. Actually, it was a much smaller team. But I made the case to our marketing team. So we have education and community actually sat in marketing prior.
Yeah.
But I made the case to bring them over to Scale just because I felt like what we needed to do for our customers was not tell them why they should be using Airtable because they're already buying Airtable. They've already purchased it.
Yep.
We need to teach them how to use Airtable and how to get the most value out of it. So made the case for, hey, let's focus our education less on, pitching and less on like why Airtable is great because our customers know that. They already bought the product.
Yeah.
We need to actually go deep and do some really deep curriculum for persona-based, learning. And so I kind of made that pitch to bring the team over. So that's kind of how team assembled into what we have today. And I honestly think this is the perfect scaled setup to have this full ecosystem of programs.
It's cool. I like the how you've segmented the team. And so the AI component, is that like one or two people looking after your AI strategy? What does that look like?
Yes, great question. So I have the most incredible employee. She was in support, and then she was in product, and then she was in education, and she started getting just so into AI, paying out of pocket to go to all these AI conferences on her own, which is very expensive.
It's super expensive.
You can talk about, just very passionate about the subject. And so Michaela, her name, she's amazing. She really wanted to focus on AI. And I really wanted to have a full-time dedicated resource because this industry is changing so quickly that I need someone to understand what's going on in AI and all of the various programs that we should be leveraging within CS. And when we started the organization, the Scaled org, my vision was actually on the digital side to actually have more of like an AI agent that was helping you through your entire journey of Airtable, where you have kind of a chatbot that knows you, your use case, what you're trying to do with the product, and providing you with the tailored education experience to get you started, and then connected back to the product to say like, oh, you haven't quite gotten it yet. Like, let's keep, try this. And as if you had like a one-to-one CSM sitting next to you.
Yeah,
that's
like a
kind
companion.
Of the vision that we painted. And there's a few products that are like starting to get there. I've been keeping my eye on a few of them, and we've been testing out a bunch of them. But Michaela's main role is really to, one, keep tabs on what's going on in the industry. We're testing out some really cool new technologies like Staircase. I don't know if you've heard of Gainsight's new Staircase AI, Reef as well, for basically identifying, health signals early and predicting churn, et cetera. So there's lots of really cool stuff happening there. So we're trying out new technology, and then we're doing a lot of innovation on our side to improve the efficiency internally of the entire CSG org. So we have a pretty lofty goal of a 10% improvement of efficiency through AI programs within our OKRs this year. And the way that we do that is actually through our own product. So Airtable has AI built into it. And so we can actually use our own product to build out account plans and to do, handoffs with AEs, et cetera, and to prepare for meetings, prepare our decks, do all kinds of things like that. We write the first draft of all of our newsletters that the digital CS team produces, all the first drafts of our newsletters, all the first drafts of our product go-to-market motion. So what's really nice about Airtable is that, we have all of our data within Airtable. You have a golden data set, like
Yeah.
your product roadmap, for example.
Right.
And now with AI in the product, we actually can take the products that are that are coming down the pipe and understand exactly what those are. And a big, challenge that we've had on the education side is actually going into Jira and figuring out like, what actually is this product doing?
Right.
What is it? I don't understand it. Right. It's, an engineer wrote the description, and we actually
Sure.
have AI sitting on top of the description to like write it in customer facing, like kind of layman's terms. And we're like,
Lingo.
oh, okay, I get it. Right. So
Yeah.
we have AI on that. And then we actually have AI to help draft the first comms for our various personas. So we have different personas and different people that care about the updates in our product. And so all of that's kind of automated. And so we've saved so much time. So we're tracking all the time savings that we are able to deliver and all the processes that Michaela is helping us kind of project manage that.
Hey, I want to have a brief chat with you about this show. Did you know that roughly 60% of listeners aren't actually subscribed to the show on whatever platform they're listening to it on? Now, as you know, algorithms love likes, follows, subscribes, comments, all of that kind of stuff. So if you get value out of the content, you listen regularly, and you want to help others to discover the content as well, please go ahead and follow the show, leave a comment, leave a review. Anything that you want to do there really helps us to grow organically as a show. And while you're at it, go sign up for the companion newsletter that goes out every week at digitalcustomersuccess.com. Now, back to the show. So that's fascinating to me on multiple levels. And I think we could go any number of ways on this. But the fact of the matter is it seems like you are, well, we talked about this briefly, but essentially you're operating outside of a CSP and doing so because you have Airtable doing all these fantastic things that honestly, I don't know if you could get a CSP to do, like in terms of drafting certain things or taking certain information from other areas of the business, just because you have the luxury of having multiple internal teams feeding all this data into the same tool, which I think is awesome. And so obviously you can, train AI to interpret those things in certain ways and do things from a metrics standpoint and an OKR standpoint. You talked about, internal efficiency and whatnot. What other things are you tracking in terms of perhaps leading indicators of, the efficacy of some of the digital motions that you're putting in place?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so each pillar is going to have its own, leading indicators, right?
Yeah.
So, from a community standpoint, I was so excited about that lagging indicator that showed, NDR, right?
Totally.
But some of the leading indicators that we are tracking on a monthly basis. So I set this up with my team. We have an MBR. We go through this on a monthly basis. We look at kind of the trends and where we're going. You have engagement rate, you have members, right? So we look at membership growth, right? And then we really care mostly about the engagement of those members. So who's coming back and who's actually, asking questions and sharing, right? So we have a community forum. We have a public forum. Everyone can go there, go to community.airtable.com, and you can start to ask questions of your peers, et cetera. And then one of the earlier programs that I built when community came over was actually building out that enterprise only community as well. So kind of taking some learnings from the Slack, champions, right? And now we have an enterprise closed community. So we have an open one for everybody. And then we have that closed one where it's a little bit smaller and a little safe space to ask your questions, right?
And
so
also tailored to like different business models and whatnot. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're looking at, the engagement. We look at also like who's coming to our events and event attendance rates, stuff like that, sentiment score, and then education. So, let's talk a little bit about education because that was the biggest rock for me. So when I came in and assessed what we needed to do to create a scaled program at Airtable, the biggest challenge that our CSMs were facing and our customers were facing, I did 30 interviews right when I landed and was like, what's going on here? What is the what do we need to fix first, right? And it was super clear that not having a formal education program and a certification program where customers can go and self-serve and do self-paced learning for their particular persona was really dragging down them and our entire CS organization. So
Sure.
the CS team was just spending time training individuals on accounts, like not even entire teams, but like they would do the team and they would do individuals and they would build all these custom trainings and they were just completely underwater.
That doesn't scale at all.
Exactly. And so, going back to kind of the, why did we do this and how did we do it? The education program was like my big rock. It was like, we need a true LMS. We need to know, who is taking our education content and all of the, courses. And then we need to certify people because you know what? People actually want to be certified on Airtable. They want to add it to their resume. And then once they are a certified builder of Airtable, they can actually take that skill set elsewhere and they have that badge of honor, et cetera. So I know we're kind of going down a tangent here.
It's fine. I love tangents.
Well, I swear we'll get back to the leading indicators. Yeah. So last fall went through the whole kind of process of procurement. But the thing is that people need to understand about scale and digital programs is just because you don't have as many, head count, right? So you don't have as many CSMs on the ground servicing customers.
Yeah.
It is not a free program. It still costs money. And the money comes from procuring software. So getting good software, your digital program is going to run on data and technology, right? And you want to get the good stuff.
Yep,
so
you do.
I was like, I wanted the best education program that we can possibly have. Was able to hire an amazing leader who came from HubSpot, Kevin Dunn. He's amazing. Came over and helped to stand up the program. So we brought over SkillJar, and since launching, so apparently SkillJar said that we had one of the most successful launches they've ever seen.
All right.
And that just goes to show that there was a huge demand for that. Yeah. People wanted to get certified. They wanted to show their skills. They wanted to up level. They don't actually probably even want to wait for a training from their CSM.
Right.
And
just get in there and get it done.
Just get in there and do it on your own. Yeah. That's why I think from a scaled, the scaled ecosystem, if you have all of their programs in place, it actually services your customers, providing them the best resource at the best time in the format that they desire, right? Yeah. Sometimes that format could be self-serve education. Sometimes it could be an email, right? Sometimes it could be a community meetup. And sometimes it could be your CSM. Sometimes it could be an AI chatbot. You're just like, I'm locked out. What do I need to do? You don't want to talk to a human. One of the things that we did from AI programs, we brought on a chatbot, so you can ask those questions. You can ask questions about the product basics. So you need to have various ways that people can get what they need. And therefore, the CSMs can actually do what they do best, which is create value and build relationships and go on site with customers. They shouldn't be troubleshooting and asking, helping people answer random questions.
Totally.
So roundabout way of getting to leading indicators, but we're back.
Yeah, we're back. No, we're back. It's, I think one of the most impressive things about your approach, just in hearing you talk about it, is just the fact that you went in and just listened for a while, which I think a lot of people don't really, spend a lot of time doing. But you went in, you listened, you're like, okay, where's the problem? Let's go solve, and so there are others who are probably in your shoes where you were last May, jumping into kind of this new world and this new program, and either building it from the ground up or taking the existing program to the next level. What other things did you learn about during this process that you might share with others in terms of how to approach, how to approach prioritizing, setting the strategy, pulling the teams together, all of that kind of stuff?
Yes, definitely. So came in, listened for a few weeks. I did my tour, right? From there, I was able to kind of build a list. I think I had 10 items on that list.
Mm,
At this point in time, I only had 2 program managers reporting to me. So
yeah.
very small team. So we weren't going to be able to solve everything, right? So it was prioritization, impact, right? Assessing a level of effort and the impact that we were going to get from these programs. So I listed everything out. I kind of said, hey, here's kind of what I think matters the most. Here are some quick wins. Here are some big bets. Do you agree? I had, all the CS leadership team and sales leadership team kind of vote on, what rose to the top. So that kind of became clear what we wanted to tackle first.
Yeah.
And then shopped around the ideas, of course, to head of product. I had a meeting with our CEO as well and just said, hey, all right, here's kind of where we're at. These are the things that we're going to tackle right now because they're easy to do. But here's actually those big bets that these are going to require, collaboration with cross-functional teams. This is going to be expensive. This is going to be, I need help from data engineering and analytics and, legal, procurement, et cetera. So made those asks as a part of that. So the quick wins that we were able to do though, because when you're starting out this program, there are some low-hanging fruit items that you can probably just do right off the bat. And those are the things that people are just kind of like procrastinating on, which is standard. Like I would say, start with what your CSMs are doing.
Yeah.
CSMs are already working with your customers. They already have kind of their onboarding, training decks, their value decks, et cetera. Hopefully people are using the same resources. And if they're not, the first thing to do to scale your organization is actually to assess and grade and say who's actually doing this the best on the team and why. Great. Let's take that as a starting point and actually package and standardize it. Then let's actually scale that to a scaled resource, right? So you can then create a piece of content that you can put on your website, even if you don't have an LMS that just says like, here's the best way to get started using our product, right? So those are kind of the quickest things that we did was standardized playbooks right off the bat. It was like, everyone needs to be using the same thing. The onboarding journey, right? So that first touch point with your customer of what do they need to know right off the bat, that's a pretty quick and easy one. And if you don't have access to, the email systems, work with your marketing team, make friends. They will help you out as well.
I think making friends is one of the most important skill sets of a digital person.
I think making friends is my number one piece of advice because, this role is so cross-functional. And this is why I love this role because, we are working with product, with procurement, with IT, with data, with engineering, with analytics, right?
Everyone.
Everyone. Yeah. So I do think, luckily I'm a social butterfly, so that helps. But I also just like to hear like, what's going on? What is your OKRs? I always compare notes when we go through planning. Like, what are you working on? Do you have feedback for me on my roadmap? What's coming down the pipe from product perspective? Okay, great. Did you put in some of our product requests? Great. We're going to help you out by making sure that people actually use the product that you're building through our education and all of our touch points, et cetera. So making friends, right? Super important. But so kind of went through that prioritization process, identifies those quick wins. We learned that there was some pain points in our onboarding process that we really just needed to teach, record a video of how to do this in our admin panel.
Right.
And then put that on our website. And that actually saved our CSMs like,
a ton of time.
Hundreds of hours.
Absolutely.
They were like, we just needed this admin video. Thank you so much. So really quick, things like that. Our product launch comms. That also is something that I think is a pretty easy one to tackle first, is that your CSM should not be spending time updating their customers on what the product roadmap is, unless it's very strategic, right? But I think that you could really automate that, especially if you have Airtable doing a lot of this, processing where you have your product roadmap information there, and then you can, build it off of that.
Like your customers shouldn't be getting the only communication about product releases from your CSM. They should be getting the information from the company and from general distribution. And then if it applies to your specific use case and your goals and your outcomes, then absolutely the CSM should drive it home.
Exactly.
But, that's awesome.
Yeah. So then, yeah, put together kind of those big bets, those
Mm-hmm.
things that we needed to, really put some muscle around and more finances around as well. So that was the
Yeah.
LMS and standing up the education program, the community and advocacy program. Kind of that was where I made the call. I was like, I would like the community to come over to Scale for these
Mm-hmm.
reasons. I really think
Mm-hmm.
that, community is such a fundamental part of scaling success. So that's where that came in. And then the AI kind of agent idea, that was also part of my big bets that we're still kind
Yeah.
of figuring out, but we
Sure.
do have that chat bot. So that kind of, created the plan. And then we started to, I think the next order of business is building an amazing team.
Yeah.
So that
Right.
was like, the team, I walked in, they're like, who is this? What are we doing? And my most important mission was to make sure that people are, doing the best work of their lives.
Yeah.
Really, that's what
Right.
I love to do. And so I'm bringing people together and building out like a mission, our vision, and our values for Scaled, and show them, hey guys, like this is where we're going. We
Yeah.
are on a rocket ship. We are a startup within a startup where we can move very, very fast. I was really excited about this role because I was giving so much greenfield. Really, they
Yeah.
were like, Alison, you are here. Tell us what you need. You have funding, you have resources, I had a small team. Now I have a little bit larger team. And so it was like, go, just go. Tell us what your plan is and go. And so that was a huge blessing. It was really fun to be operating that way. And so I needed my team to also be on board that, like, guys, we are going to move fast. Are you
Right.
ready? Like,
Yeah.
let's go. And
Yeah.
so got the team excited. The things that are really important, I think, when you're building out a new team, and especially if you're coming in as a new leader, was kind
Yeah.
of to set the vision, values, document what the career matrix looks like, right? So for this program's role, like, what are the expectations and how are we going to achieve greatness? And why do you want to be on this team?
Right.
I think my biggest accomplishment outside of, like the business metrics at Airtable was seeing the EVS scores a year later after, I joined, and then we did it again. And a year later, EVS being our employee voice survey,
Sure.
put the highest,
Yeah.
change in the highest employee voice of part of the team. And so it was just really fun to see that. And the reason why is because my team is amazing. They're working so hard. They're working so hard, but I'm not asking them to work hard.
Yeah.
They're doing it because they
They're just
love
in it.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
They love
Exactly.
it. They love
Yeah.
what we're doing. It's so innovative. It's fresh. It's new. We're failing fast. We're learning. We're putting out new programs. And what's really fun too is just like the celebration that comes along with it, because
Mm-hmm.
everything that we do is taking something off of the plate of the high touch team, where they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And so they get a lot of that and a lot of like standing ovations, through Slack. And so it's been a blast. So we've been celebrating our wins, and we've been sharing what we're working on. I'm a huge proponent of an open roadmap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
we did like our virtual road show where I got everybody, we're all over the country. And so
Yeah.
we do a virtual road show in Slack, which is kind of fun. We did that at Slack too, where you do like a video clip, 2-minute
Cool.
clip of like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm Allison. This is what I'm working on, blah, blah, blah. And we posted in, the all CSG channel, and
Sure.
people go, whoa, that's awesome.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So I share a roadmap. We get feedback on what we're working on, but we have just been, when I say that we have been like pedal to the metal,
Yeah.
jamming, the amount of programs that we have built in the last year is pretty astounding. I mean, it just is because I have an amazing team. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's so cool. I mean, yeah, just to think that you started, a year and change ago, and the amount of change that's a ton of work. And what I was going to circle back on from a comment you made is around establishing vision, mission, all that kind of stuff. It's like, that's the stuff that makes like those words, those individual words, make me physically cringe, because I've been part of so many different like vision mission exercises that have been completely misguided and whatever.
Right.
But
yeah,
every time, I've pulled together teams around this kind of stuff, and also given them ownership in part of that mission and vision, and defining what that is, and defining what people not only, want to achieve, as part of the team, but what they personally need out of their
Exactly.
employee experience. It is
Exactly.
so
Yes.
fundamentally grounding that you remove this layer of just kind of second guessing, or you remove this layer of just questioning, and it allows you to just like literally just pick a point and go and
Yeah.
execute on that stuff with clarity. So kudos to
Yes.
you for pulling that together. And the follow-on question I was going to ask, but I'm
Okay.
not going to. I'm going to pivot to a different question. I was going to
Okay.
ask
Let's go.
what your strategy around executive alignment is, but I'm not even going to
Yes.
ask, because you are like all over like communicating and going, you mentioned going to the CEO, presenting what you're going to do, and really setting the tone for what the program is, what the program can achieve, and doing that in a very
Yes.
open manner. And I think ultimately, when it comes to executive buy-in, that's the key. Like, you're presenting on what it is that you're here to do, what your plans are, how those will impact the business, and giving those progress reports
That's
over
exactly
time.
right.
So
Yeah. I
it's
mean, I
like,
think if I could offer one piece of advice for
please.
anybody that's
Yeah.
listening,
Uh-huh.
document your work. I am a huge fan of putting together a walking deck. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've heard that term, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's a Salesforce term, but I've adopted it and I love it.
Uh-huh.
So walking deck is where you document the scope of what your team owns and what you're working on, and it is a living breathing document that basically shows, the what you're currently working on, what your roadmap looks like in the future, and what you've done in the past. And so that was one of the other first things that I did, was like, okay, let's define scale. I think I
Yeah.
had a few kind of defining meetings when I joined. That was like, what is scale? Why are we here? And sometimes people hear scale, they're like, am I, is what I'm doing not going to be as, important as a high touch CSM? No, the answer is absolutely not. Like, we work together, and you have your superpower, which is going in person with customers and driving value. And our superpower is helping you be more successful through all these other programs. Right. And
Right.
so really defining what that looks like. But so documenting my walking deck, it's something that I always have ready to go. I thought it was really interesting, and you got to be audible ready at all times, understanding, where your leading indicators are, kind of back to that leading indicator. I have a document that we talk about every other team meeting, where we go through for education, OCSM, digital CS, AI, community. We basically show, like, here are the numbers. Here's where we're at right
Yeah.
now. So
Right.
we always have that ready. And then we do our QBRs, right? So the QBR is a great opportunity for me to show off the great work that the team has been doing. But yes, so back to the walking deck, I recently got a request on a Monday by our CFO to say, hey, do you think you could share what you and your team are doing at my all hands on Wednesday? And I was like, and she was like, I'm so sorry. Usually we give people 2 weeks to prepare. And I was like,
Yeah.
don't need
No,
it. Like,
no
we're
problem.
ready.
Yeah.
We're coming in. And that was when we talk about executive, presentations, that was the perfect opportunity for me to go into that meeting, because she owns finance team, is, finance, legal, IT, data, and like the procurement arm.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
I was in the process of procuring more software, and I had a lot of asks from the data engineering side to make the software work.
Yeah.
And so it was actually my opportunity to connect the work that they're doing to support me to the actual business. And it was the first time that they were like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Like, I understand why you need the software and you need our team to help. And I was like, everything that you guys are doing is actually supporting our customers in this direct way. Right. And so they really felt empowered by that. They were like, this is really cool. And so I really take the cross-functional executive alignment meetings. I try to do those with each core team, if I can, once a quarter, right? Product is another one, right, where we need to be very attached at the hip, as well as marketing. So the marketing team, we have a lot of cross-functional collaboration there, across event strategy and life cycle marketing, and so, staying up to date with, what we're doing, what they're doing, providing each other feedback. And then I have that constantly. We have our roadmap in Airtable of everything that we're currently working on, that people can kind of go in and request new things, new pieces of content, new programs.
Yeah.
But that's also like a living, breathing kind of area where they can go and check out.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, look, we are woefully out of time. And I feel like we could like keep going on this forever, because you have so much, wealth to bring. And I think I can probably speak for your team when I say that they're lucky to have you as a leader, because you're obviously very thoughtful and forward with all of this stuff, which is great. Just rapid fire, a couple of quick questions that I always ask, which is, first off, like, what's in your content diet that others can benefit from?
Other than this podcast, I mean, this podcast for sure. Honestly, it's going to be pretty boring, but I'm a huge fan of All In. I love listening every week. I love the various perspectives that they bring, and it's always has current events, but also all the tech world, how that's going to impact us and what we're working on, and it's always so current and exactly what I'm thinking about, from like AI, and I love that podcast. Other than that, I have a 4-year-old who I'm just in a 2-year-old, and so I'm a lot of a mom.
So you're watching Bluey.
Yes, a little bit of Bluey, but a lot of Dr. Becky Good Inside, because we're trying to figure out big feelings and all that stuff.
Yes.
So, like, being a mom is actually my number one. Like, that is the job. That is the job. And this is actually like my side, fun job that, I go and work with adults. And then I have like my number one job, which is at home. So a lot of my content is around parenting and figuring out, how to do this right. And that's mostly what I think about, to be honest.
That's great. Yeah. No, I sympathize greatly. Are there any shout outs that you want to give out to?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. Yeah. So, I mean, I talked about Slack. My mentors there, Kelly Bray. I don't know if you've met her. She is really a visionary when it comes to digital CS and scale. I learned really everything from Kelly, and I am just so grateful for being able to work with her for 4 years. Kelly Bray, Christina Kosmowski. She also led CS at Slack and brought me on to do the champion program. She kind of was the one that envisioned it. And Alison Barrett, she's amazing as well. She leads scale now at OpenAI. We're always like texting and sharing ideas and things that we're doing. Some new. So those relationships have been wonderful. Yeah. Scott Kubicki has been a huge mentor and proponent of helping me like bring this, multi-pillar program into the Scaled under one roof. Yeah. So huge shout out to him. I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but also I think like the CS meetup is a great one that the folks are bringing to San Francisco. I think there was one in New York a couple weeks ago, which so just getting people together. Nick Mehta does an amazing job. I love going to the Gainside events too. So the folks that are getting us all in one room, it always feels like a fun, like high school reunion in some ways.
Totally.
Just seeing everyone you've ever worked with. And if I had more time, I would love to just spend more time in the community out there and chatting with friends, because that's what it feels like. So thanks to you and everyone that's kind of bringing this community together.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's awesome. Well, where can people find you, engage with you? I mean, LinkedIn probably, right?
Yeah. I would say LinkedIn. Definitely. That's kind of the main place you can find me. Yeah, I get lots of questions. I'm happy to answer. I feel like, hopefully today people walked away with a little bit of a toolkit of, how to get started. And it can be super daunting when you're, just getting going. And I felt that way a year ago too. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. And then it's just like brick by brick, little by little, every single thing is a win. And then you fast forward a year and then you have a real program that works. And a year goes by so fast, obviously in startup world. So, I think anyone that's listening, just start small, take those quick wins, right? Start documenting, your IT budget and start to build those relationships internally with all of the various cross-functional teams. Motivate your team, tell them it's going to be awesome. They're going to have the ride of their life, those types of things. But yeah, if people have questions about specifics, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer.
Amazing. Wise words from none other than Alison Barrett. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was a blast.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Digital CX Podcast. If you like what we're doing, consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. It really helps us to grow and provide value to a broader audience. You can view the Digital Customer Success Definition Word Map and get more information about the show and some of the other things that we're doing at digitalcustomersuccess.com. This episode was edited by Lifetime Value Media, a media production company founded by our good mutual friend Dylan Young. Lifetime Value aims to serve the content, video, audio production needs of the CS and post-sale community. They're offering services at a steep discount for a limited time, so navigate to lifetimevaluemedia.com, go have a chat with Dylan, and make sure you mention the Digital CX Podcast sent you. I'm Alex Turkovich. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.